The thing that shaped me the most is when I was 20, I got diagnosed with multiple sclerosis. And I couldn't walk without a cane. I had been a competitive athlete, and I really wanted to give up. Taking impeccable care of myself was a way to not be in a wheelchair. And by reverse engineering it, we can get a lot of power in conditions and problems that we don't usually feel power in.
Do you think that we are currently in a menstrual renaissance or in a reproductive panic?
I think that we are in a menstrual catastrophe, right? That is an epidemic of menstrual ill health. Apple is celebrating now they can predict when a person's period's going to onset. This is innovation. This is shit. We're going backwards. Women's rights are being eviscerated every single month. We can't afford menstrual supplies. What should I do? And one girl said, "Oh, what I do is I go into the bathrooms and I try to find the menstrual pads that are not very used, and I just recycle somebody else's used menstrual pad." Yeah, I cried. So I really fell in love with the menstrual cycle. I just became obsessed with how valuable it is. Your menstrual cycle is an instrument of unfair advantage. And women passing out from their periods, we should be talking about that. We need to be talking about those things even though they make us feel uncomfortable.
Two things can be true at the same time. And in the space between these two things, it's where the best questions lie. This is what I want to do in every episode. I take something that feels personal and I trace it back to the structures behind it. The goal is to come out clearer on the other side on what's actually going on. Subscribe now so you don't miss what's next. This is No Wonder. All right, welcome everybody to this new episode of No Wonder. We are here with Kirsten Karchmer. So Kirsten, who are you and what you doing?
So yeah, thanks for having me, by the way. I'm Kirsten Karchmer, and I was one of the first fertility acupuncturists in North America. And for 25 years, I helped about 10,000 women who are on fertility journeys. And about 5 years ago, I read a study that showed that less than 3% of couples could afford fertility treatments, and 80% of women had life-interrupting menstrual pain in PMS. And I just thought, I'm in the wrong work. We have a lot of work. We need to make all things related to fertility and women's health way more effective and way more affordable for all women. And so that's what I've been working on for literally the last 8 years.
What would you say is the single achievement that most shaped who you are today?
That's a great question. It's not an achievement. The thing that shaped me the most is when I was 20, I got diagnosed with multiple sclerosis. And I couldn't walk without a cane. I had been a competitive athlete, and I really wanted to give up. But I ended up going to an acupuncturist against my will. And what I realized was the way that the acupuncturist explained my MS to me, first of all, it just made perfect sense, which is what people say often about Chinese medicine, oh, that makes perfect sense. That's so simple. But also in about a year, I was in remission. So through that process, my body, either went into remission, I healed my body, call it whatever you want. And I wanted to bring that to other people, and knowing, even though I've been in remission, I still have a chronic illness. So I still have to take really impeccable care of myself. But what I realized is that taking impeccable care of myself was a way to not be in a wheelchair. And for all the people who have chronic illnesses, especially women, a lot of those chronic illnesses, we can help to understand those diagnoses better by understanding their menstrual cycles. The menstrual cycles give us a lot of underlying issues, things that point us in the places. For example, why does this person get MS? I have 4 sisters. Why was I the only one who got MS out of the 4 sisters? And by reverse engineering it, we can get a lot of power in conditions and problems that we don't usually feel power in. Because once we know what to do, then we can either take action or not take action.
So if I understood correctly, you were in a different field before, and then you pivoted into acupuncture. What happened after?
Well, afterwards, I was a linguist before I was an acupuncturist. And when I got to acupuncture college, a new Chinese doctor came from China, who's a very famous gynecologist whose English was not that good yet. And so I became his protege, mostly translating for him, even though my Chinese is terrible. But and so I really fell in love with the menstrual cycle. I just became obsessed with how valuable it is, and this idea that the menstrual cycle is a curse and something to be avoided, when I would argue that your menstrual cycle is an instrument of unfair advantage. It is one of the best tools that we have to understand our health currently and predict our future health.
So, myself, I'm a woman, so of course I experience a menstrual cycle. And I feel like recently in the media, and I think you can testify as well, female health is clearly having somewhat of a moment, right? Firstly, in my personal experience, it started with the Roe v. Wade anxiety and the female health, infertility to begin with. Then it also shifted more into the biohacking and everybody wanting to kind of optimize their health at their best of their capabilities. And then comes again another down wave with the declining birth rates, which are all more or less examples of drivers of period health being mainstream nowadays. But my question to you, to begin a little bit this conversation, to explore more your work, do you think that we are currently in a menstrual renaissance or in a reproductive panic? And where do you fit yourself into this spectrum?
I think that we are in a menstrual catastrophe. We're going backwards. Women's rights are being eviscerated every single month, or plans to eviscerate. Some of the bills that are being presented in individual states are so scary, from tracking, from forcing women who are having miscarriages to capture the products of those miscarriages so they can be biopsied, so that they can use those to prosecute women for hurting themselves or somehow inadvertently causing a miscarriage. This is very dangerous legislation. Inconceivable in the technology that we're building while we're starting with infertility, the goal is to build a platform across all of women's health, starting with age 7. And your question is, how do I fit into that? The best work that I can do is with the little girls, right? My plan is to flood them with body positivity, period positivity, sex positivity, like sexual difference positivity, everything that nobody wants to talk about. I want to give them in a reasonable and responsible way. It's nothing, inappropriate, but we can't just tell them nothing. We can't allow all of our young people to just learn about sex from Google searches or from GPT. And that if we do a good job there, hopefully early menstruators will have a different relationship with themselves and what is right and wrong around their bodies and their health, and will be better advocates. Because I think, quite frankly, like 82%, I said this earlier, 82% of women have life-interrupting menstrual pain and PMS. But I've never met a woman on the planet who knew that stat except for me, right? That is an epidemic of menstrual ill health, but nobody is talking about it, right? But if we did, again, I want to be very careful not to blame women for this. This is a societal issue, but we do play a role in it because we do get what we take, right? All people, like, we will get whatever we tolerate. And so what we have to do is do a better job of raising the threshold. Like, women will tell me, they'll say, yeah, I pass out from my period every month. And I'm like, that's not normal. And you can probably get rid of that in like 1 to 3 months. And like, it's not that bad. I'm like, you're passing out from pain. Do you hear what you're saying? It's not that bad. Like, every single month you're passing out from pain. And so we have to start to sort of peel back that hard layer that all of us have constructed around ourselves to protect ourselves from, all the judgment, all the expectations.
100%. And you yourself, if I remember correctly, you're quite active on social media as well, the period expert on TikTok specifically, which in a way also gets you closer to the younger generations, right? In your opinion, how is social media playing a role in this current ecosystem?
Well, honestly, for the most part, I mean, I love social media. I think it's really fun. I especially love TikTok. But the reality is that I see, especially if you use supplements as an example, women will see a video of one person saying, I took Geritol. It's a baby in a bottle. Go start taking Geritol. And people will flock to buy. Geritol is a supplement for old people. It's a really old, junky, and it's dangerous because it has a lot of iron in it. It's for old people who have a tendency to be anemic. But if you don't have a tendency anemic, or you're already taking a prenatal and then you take Geritol, you're overdosing on iron, which is quite dangerous for our bodies. And so I think that the piece that's missing is that, we need to do a better job really helping educate women and creating trusted places for them to get information, not just from like a random TikToker, even though I am a random TikToker. But what I always say is like, whatever you see on social media, if it's something different than what you thought before, or if it's something different than what your doctor said, don't just check me, but also check your doctor. Like, can birth control regulate my period? No, it can't. But plenty of doctors tell their patients this. I always say, like, it's very hard to stay pregnant if you don't have temperatures that are consistently above 98 after ovulation. No one has ever said that before besides me. I don't have any studies to prove it, but you should still go look up and say, like, what is the relationship between temperatures and progesterone, so you can at least have an opinion. Should I believe this person? Should I not believe this person? And that's how you become a more informed consumer. I think the other thing is, like, on social media, the trend of like girl boss, hustle culture, this idea of like CrossFit, Orange Theory for women, intermittent fasting. I think for women, unless you are extremely robust, is probably working against your health instead of for it. In fact, women who exercise to exhaustion 4 or more times a week are 50 to 70% less likely to get pregnant than those who don't. No exercise, which in terms of fertility in this particular study was shown to be more helpful than doing CrossFit.
Just as a follow-up question, do you think that this kind of behaviors, the over-exercising, the wanting to take a quick fix supplement, even myself, I have a smart ring, I take my temperature every single second of the day. Do you think this is more empowerment or just an anxiety that we collectively feel around our health?
I think it depends on, I think that data is really valuable. I think the right data is even more valuable. I think track data without any synthesis or evaluation or understanding of what does the combination of data points tell us is completely useless and likely injurious to women. What happens is, in my social media channels, the majority of the DMs that I get are screenshots of women's trackers saying, what does this mean and what do I do about it? Oh, my PGD is 14.8. Oh, my E2 is 9.7. It doesn't even say if it's good, bad. I show it to my doctor. The doctor doesn't know what to do with that either because they don't know how to adjust. That, to me, that's useless information. Nobody knows how to fix it. We don't really know what it means. I like to focus on factors that are strong underlying predictors of fertility or pregnancy outcomes. And those same predictors are reflections of overall health, right? It's the same thing. So when the Conceivable app will have just a period section, will just be for periods, right? The operating system is still the same on the back end. It's looking, what are all the underlying issues that are coming together to cause your health presentation? And then how do we address that as a system-based approach instead of chasing after individual symptoms?
Yeah, so for anyone that doesn't know what Conceivable is, we mentioned it now a couple of times. Can you walk us through what's going on?
Sure. So again, I used to be a fertility acupuncturist. And then I read a study that only 3% of couples could afford fertility treatment and had a hypothesis. I thought, could I build software that would mimic what I did in my clinic with AI? And could that AI be at least 50% as good as me at getting people pregnant? And so we did a clinic, we built a first version of it. It's kind of a crappy version. And we had 105 women use it for 4 months. And we had like 28% success rate in 4 months, which is really, we should allow 6 months for this because like 3 or 4 months to fix things, 3 or 4 months to get pregnant. But mostly we were looking at, did their score go up? So they increased the likelihood of natural conception by between 150 and 260% in 4 months with no human interaction at 1,000th the cost of IVF. And so what it is basically, if you think period tracker, start there, except you get AI me, Kai, Kirsten AI, and Kai interviews you to figure out all the underlying issues. She teaches you about those underlying issues. And then she meets with your virtual care team, your chef, your nutritionist, your therapist, your data analyst, and your supplement formulator. And they're like, okay, beautiful mind board. Here's what's going on. What do we do about it? And then in the space of it, like the chef is like, all right, well, she only has 1 day of bleeding. I'm going to increase iron and B vitamins in her diet and make sure that she doesn't have any digestive symptoms. The therapist is going to say digestion, stress really affects digestion. We know she's got gas and bloating. I'm going to schedule some regular times where I can talk to her, help her to continue to train to downregulate her nervous system, so on and so on. And then each month you can talk to any of your care team at any time. Say you wake up and you have a fever and you go to talk to Olive, that's your chef, and you're like, Olive, I think I have COVID. What should I eat today? She already knows all your clinical history, and she can say, oh, well, all right, you have this, and here's what you're going to eat to try and release 60, or we can use Chinese medicine, food therapy. If you live in Africa and she wants to provide, she's trying to get you to eat tabbouleh or something that's got things that you can't buy in Africa, you can say, oh, here's my zip code. Make sure that I can buy whatever you're ordering, suggesting for me to eat. Make sure that I can buy it locally. I don't have to go to Amazon. It's not too expensive. And so you basically get this virtual care team that currently helps you figure out why you're not getting or staying pregnant and fix it. And in the next few months, there'll be a new experience for pregnancy and staying pregnant, and another new experience postpartum. Then we'll go back to the little girls and periods. So we have a ring. The other thing is we do have a ring, a halo ring, similar to Oura, half the price, better, and non-invasively measures glucose. And then we also do personalized supplements, which I'm actually very proud of this piece because so many women are taking supplements, and you just go to Amazon and you guess. And I know because I've guessed too on products that I wasn't familiar with or that our manufacturers don't carry. I was like, how do you pick a manufacturer for astaxanthin? Like some brand new weird thing, It's really hard. And so what we're able to do is work with a new manufacturer. You can go to our website. This is whether you're trying to get pregnant or not. Go to your website and fill out a quiz. And then we make daily packs for you to help with the underlying issues that are impacting either your period, your hormone health, or your fertility.
And this is available all across US. I want to just go a little bit back because I'm a little bit of a nerd. And you said that without going into the proprietary technology, of course, but what do you mean you can measure glucose without, I thought that was not possible. I thought Apple was working on it for ages and they kept pushing it back.
Yeah, you can't. It's not super accurate in terms of you wouldn't use this. It's not accurate enough. It's not a medical device in terms of accuracy. It can predict high, low, or normal, which is fine. That's all we need. We interviewed 16,000 women last year, and we asked them, do you know what your blood sugar has been in the last 3 months, high, low, or normal in general? Almost no one knew. But your blood sugar really plays a role in your hormones, your period, and your fertility. And so if we don't know it, a lot of times if it's not very high that it's producing symptoms, but you just kind of feel off. And if you feel it all the way, you might not even notice. You might just feel funky all the time. But if you're wearing the ring and it's sensing that the blood sugar has been high lately, especially if it's new high blood sugar or you're pregnant, it sends a note to the chef and it's like, hey, so many's, this has been going on for this person. Her blood sugar is high. Let's go ahead and increase protein, fiber, and fat by a certain percent for the next week. Let's watch her blood sugar. Sends a note to the therapist, same thing. Check in with her and see if something stressful is going on. Let's see if we can mediate that. And let's see if we can operate and change that before it becomes a bigger problem.
That really sounds like a full operating system than just an app that tells you things, right?
Yes, exactly. That's exactly what I'm working on, trying to come up with the message of how do you explain what we do.
Wonderful.
Because it's not an app, it's not a ring, it's not a supplement, right? It's an experience. It's a full care team experience, toolbox.
Wonderful. And usually this question, you should ask it at the end, but I kind of want to preface the conversation by asking this question. What legacy are you trying to create? What's going to be like the next 50 years of Conceivable? Where do you want to go, if you could imagine it or even structure it?
I can completely imagine it. I can already see it. So I'm almost 60. And some of this work I probably won't even be around to see anymore, which I'm kind of excited about because in Chinese medicine, they say the good doctor treats the patient. The great doctor treats society, but the master will learn how to make herself obsolete. And that's what I'm working on. Is the legacy is what I learned in 25 years of clinical experience, and then basically giving it to the world for free. What I want to prove Like, really, I want to win the Nobel Prize in medicine, not for any ego reason, although I do have, normal ego, but I want to prove that, first of all, an acupuncturist can prove that you can completely transform the health of the majority of women on the planet for almost nothing. And I think that we can do it. I think that we can, we'll get better and better at what the work that we're doing, the interventions and the efficiency. And now Kai can learn. So say she's working with you and say you have 1 day of bleeding. Just try and use a really obvious example. If you only have 1 day of bleeding, it's really hard to get pregnant. There isn't enough blood to support implantation. But more importantly, there's not enough blood, right? It's not just the blood in your uterus. We need to make a placenta. We need to feed the baby with your blood. We need resources. And only having 1 day of bleeding signals under-resourced. And so what we want to try to be doing is helping her to see that whole picture, right? That whole, not just like you only have 1 day bleeding, let's fix that 1 day bleeding, but the way that we're living isn't taking care of it. So that the legacy becomes, if we start with the little girls before they get their periods, and she's 15 years old and she starts having a really scanty period, and before she's even thinking about having a baby, we're already teaching her how to fix that's an important thing to pay attention and how to fix it. If we do a really good job with that, we will have armed them with everything that they need to not need the fertility experience anymore. So the legacy will be like when no one is using the fertility part of the Conceivable app anymore, we'll know that we did our work. When, every single thing that affects a woman's menstrual cycle, PCOS, endometriosis, long periods, short periods, all of those things, they are all predictors of the diseases that are most likely to kill us. I just want to let that in. We just put up with it, but they are signals, just like low sperm parameters. They are signals that our body is not getting what it wants and needs to be optimally healthy. Women just don't know how to do it and how to fix it, and so we hope to pave the path where we help every single woman who wants to be the hero of this journey, the hero of their own and total complete transformation, such in a way that they have access to whatever they want in life. They're mentally free, they're physically free, they're free, right? They're able to unshackle themselves from whatever that is. And that app, that version of Conceivable, we talk about like, a period without pain, that's conceivable. Getting pregnant after 19 miscarriages and no drugs, that's conceivable. Conceivable should be about what's possible.
And so what I'm getting also from what you just told me is that if I am now, let's use my example, for instance, not necessarily all the information is true, but I'm a 25-year-old who's experiencing irregular periods, painful periods. That could also be an indicator that could be an early symptom of something else, that it's even more dangerous. Is that what you were saying?
Yes. First of all, it's an indicator that it may be harder to get and stay pregnant. Just having an irregular cycle makes it harder to get and stay pregnant. And our doctors are not saying, they're just like, fuck it, eat whatever you want, drink what you want. But irregular cycles are really just like mostly related to our weight, how we exercise, how we eat, and how we sleep, and also the chemicals that we're exposed to, because some people, use like a lot of hair chemicals and things like that can be very hormone disrupting. But each of those things, none of them are causes. If you think about each one of those symptoms that you described, think of them as like your dashboard on your car, and they're little individual check engine lights. Oh, irregular cycle, check engine. Long and painful cycle, check engine. But what we're trained to do in this culture is to take a big ass piece of duct tape and just put it over there, birth control pills, and be like, I just don't want to think about this for 15 years. But whatever you were doing that was producing that, you keep doing it, but the check engine light is now, hidden. And so then 10 years pass, and sometimes we take the duct tape off and we're like, whoa, we have a real shitstorm here. It's not even the problems that we see, it's the years of either insulin resistance or high blood sugar, whatever the thing that was tweaking your period in the first place, that I don't want you to just get exposed to if you don't have to.
Yeah, this is a little mind-blowing to me, because I always just assumed that irregular period or heavy period or shorter periods we're just a manifestation of we're all different, and I should just leave it the way it is. And maybe I'll wait until I get pregnant and my period will suddenly become wonderfully amazing and I will never have pain ever again. So it's very important for me to say this out loud. So the periods and the pain in the periods is not a natural consequences of your genetics.
No. So I would argue after 25 years with, tens of thousands of patients that 90% of women can be PMS and pain-free in 3 or 4 months. Like maybe not 100% and 85% pain-free, like whatever the symptoms are. That's with or without endometriosis. Some people have such, like, I am working with a patient who has endometriosis on her diaphragm. And that adhesion, that endometrial lesion, it's not the diaphragm that causes the pain. It radiates up into her neck. And they just keep removing it. And it keeps just coming back. And okay, that's sort of outside, but most people will make significant improvement. We have to figure out why those things are happening, right? A lot of times, a lot of pain, a couple of things to look at: exhaustion, a lot of stress, overexercise, a lot of PMS, and inflammation. And inflammation can come from so many different places. And some people are really sensitive to inflammatory things like scented products, plastics, Teflon, that kind of stuff. And some people aren't sensitive at all. So it's very unfair in that way, because I know some people who are like, if they get in a room with somebody who has like synthetic perfume on, they won't ovulate, and other people who can just like dye their hair, cover themselves in perfume, touch receipts, and nothing bad happens. The only way really to know is to clean it out and see if it makes a difference.
Understand. Well, everything that you've been told me so far sounds amazing, but I imagine that this takes a lot of training data, especially if we're talking about AI, right? I assume that this will take a lot of people's information as well, or even synthetic data if that's an option. So the reason why I want to be talking a little bit more about data, and I want to try to bring also my own anxieties in a sense, right? Since I have you here, you could try to make me a bit more clear what's everything that's going on within this health tech, right? So for me, as I was mentioning at the beginning of this conversation, one of the biggest turning points that really told me and brought me to pay attention to my health tech journey is, even if I'm in Europe and it doesn't really affect me as much as it would if I was living in the US, was Roe v. Wade. Because I clearly remember reading this tweet of people, many people were tweeting this, and they were like, if you're using online period trackers or tracking your cycle through your phone, get off of it and delete your data, because you are being watched, quote unquote, by the authorities. And I just remember, and I still feel it now, reading these tweets and getting like cold chills, getting the chills, being like, oh my God. So first of all, what are your thoughts on this? And then can we just dive more deeper into data awareness?
What we do at Conceivable is all of your data is fully anonymized. So I can see like I can see your name and your email address, but you can absolutely use fake name and fake email, which I would do if you're concerned about it. I promise you that I will put my life in front of your data. Like, that's how important it is. It's just, if you can't trust me with your data, then I can't help you. And I cannot tolerate somebody getting hurt or anything happening to anybody because of their sharing of personal information. When we have more money, we'll build our own language model so that there is like no possible way that your data can be released. But I think it's an important question.
And do you, in your experience, I think you worked with a ton of women already, even in the build of Conceivable. To your experience, do women truly understand the value, but also the risk of their health data that they generate on these apps?
They don't understand the risk. I think if you live in a place like Texas, where I live, where the laws are very conservative and very unfavorable to women, and I think that more women in Texas, but it's a very conservative state. So then you have more women who are actually in favor of some of those laws, which is so misogynistic. It's kind of shocking to me. Like, if you If you had an abortion, if you want to have an abortion, and I drove you to Oklahoma or a state where you can legally get an abortion, and your husband found out, he could sue me for $10,000. If your dad rapes you and you go get an abortion, your dad can sue you for $10,000. Like they've criminalized, it's like basically criminalizing even helping somebody get an abortion.
Yeah. Whoa, great.
On a lighter note, well, this is a moment to be grateful for whatever privileges you have right now.
Yeah, but you were mentioning, for instance, on your app, you are encouraging even people using a different email or a different name if they're worried about their data being used for other purposes. As consumers and yourself as a CEO and builder, what guardrails should we demand from the technology that we use?
Well, I think that we should first demand transparency. Really, how are you protecting my data? Like on the Conceivable site, you can go down, we have so many privacy policies. Like you can read every single thing that we're doing to preserve and protect your data. And anybody who's not super transparent about it, and if you want to know, ask them. And then what I always do, if it's somewhere where there's secure data, is I take the terms and conditions or whatever privacy policy, and then I put it into Claude. Don't use OpenAI because OpenAI shares your data with ICE. So I put it into Claude, which is much more secure, still not 100% secure, but way more secure. Put it in there and then ask Claude, what am I agreeing to in these terms and conditions? And then make sure that you feel okay with those, with what you're agreeing. Just lay it out in bullet points, very easy. And what is in here that I maybe shouldn't agree to? And then you can make a determination for yourself, your level of comfort around whether you're okay with this distribution of data or not.
Yeah. So do you recommend using Claude over ChatGPT, for instance, right?
I would never use GPT anymore.
And with this data that, for example, I'm creating quite a bit of data, right? Because I've been wearing this ring for, I think, since June of last year. So overall, I've used quite a bit of data, right? How could I leverage this data strategically and instead of just defensively? So we gave up a few ideas on how to defend our data, but how could I use this data in a proactive way?
So it's less about the longitudinal data, in my opinion. I think that's like having a year of data is not interesting to me at all. I mean, not to be rude, like I'm not saying you're not interesting, but like what's happened in the last 2 months is really your best indicator of, because basically all of those biometrics are measuring what's happening in real time. So something that happened a year ago, I don't even care about. You don't remember what was happening. I can't interview you. So even with your menstrual cycle, 2 months of data, 1 month of data, 2 months is amazing, because what we just want to see is what's the trend. In general, are you doing pretty much the same thing? Or are there a lot of changes between months? And the way to weaponize it is to, I don't know how to teach this. Like you can read my book, Seeing Red. It tries to teach it because it's a very system-based approach. But essentially, the way to weaponize that data is to cross-reference it, not only between what's collected from the ring, but then from your physical symptoms, your sleep, your period characteristics, your environmental factors, how much stress you have, how you work, all of these things, they all come together to make a map of how much your body likes and dislikes what you're doing and what are the things that are impacting it. And that's what we do at Conceivable. Like if I went through and just interviewed you, I could absolutely manually do that for you. But that's where you want to look at it. And if I can give an example, like maybe a woman has low temperatures after ovulation, that tells us often that progesterone's not as high as we would like it to see. That's a data point. You could see that from a tracker. You could see that from your ring. But in isolation, that tells you nothing. Your temperatures are low and maybe you have low progesterone, but what do? There really aren't supplements that help progesterone. They're really taking supplemental progesterone doesn't really do anything. But the way we would do it is we're always asking the question, why? So when the user's temperatures are low, the AI is like, why are her temperatures low? And looking at what it already knows, it tries to figure it out. And if it doesn't, it's like, is this because she's tired and she doesn't have the energy to raise it? If so, why? And why and why and why? Could be 5 different things that are making her tired. Could be stress, could be work, could be working out, could be diet, could be digestion. And then figuring that out, once you map the why, the why, the why, and you figure out how those little whys are connected, it's very easy to make a plan to fix those underlying whys. You fix those and they turn on this why, and then they fix that why. Then the temperatures go up and then you have enough progesterone. That's how you weaponize data.
That is so interesting. So I feel like the way I would name the action that you just told me is a form of having biological intelligence, right? Being able, even if you don't have an external tool that tells you something about your health, it's kind of reading within the lines of what your body is telling you. So I would like to play a little thought experiment with you and imagining that I am extremely biological intelligent and I get almost everything right in my day-to-day existence as a 20 to 30-year-old woman. How would my 28 days, or if it's easier, how would my 24 hours kind of look like?
If you were using the app? So I never met anybody who looked really good, to be honest. Like, I meet a lot of people who say, I'm really healthy. And like, what's your energy? It's a 4 out of 10. Okay. I'm really healthy, but I sleep 6 hours, but I don't eat anymore, but I drink 5 coffees, right? Everybody thinks that, like, I kind of have pretty high standards. So, I'm looking for energy that's like, where there is an abscess of an intervention, when their energy is 8 out of 10. They have a 28 to 32 day cycle. They ovulate on cycle day 14 to 16 with clear, stretchy cervical discharge. They do not have PMS, no mood changes, breast tenderness, bloating, fatigue, anxiety, sleep changes. Then their period comes. They have 4 days of bleeding, soak a tampon or a pad about every 4 hours. No cramping, clotting, spotting, fresh red blood. Temperatures before ovulation, 97.2. After ovulation, 98. Now, when people have that cycle, they get pregnant and they stay pregnant. So, and to me, that is not only for fertility, but that is the state of optimal health. It's not, people always say like, well, everybody's different. No, they're not. Sorry, everybody lives differently. Everybody takes care of their bodies in different ways because they're getting different kinds of education and information. And we're taught to just ignore the feedback that our body gives us. Like when I was growing up, I was a competitive gymnast. I don't sweat. Part of my MS is I just do not sweat, which means I overheat really easy, which means in a hot Texas gym every day, I trained until I threw up. And nobody thought that was a bad idea, right? Just nobody was like, this seems dangerous. You're so red, like you're about to have heat stroke every single day of your childhood. And so it's a perfect example of how women have gotten to the place. I won't speak for men because I'm not a man, but like how women have gotten to this place where we have just put up with, and we don't even know how to listen to our bodies anymore. Not a criticism. It's like we're the frogs boiling in the water. It's just the heat just gets turned up a little bit more and we just take, and we're just good. Dude, we can have babies without drugs. It's a big experience. We're really tough. And unfortunately, we've had to use that toughness to kind of put up with our bodies in a way that we don't need to.
Yeah. But can you walk me back a little bit? I think I've seen some of your content. You called this blissful time a conceivable period, right? Can you walk me through the variables again, because I think that was very interesting and it was a bit quick.
Yes. So the conceivable cycle or conceivable period, again, don't use this as something for perfectionism. This is not like 5'8" and 100 pounds. This is, anything outside of this is an opportunity for you to feel better. So don't think of it as like, oh man, I have so much work to do. Like, wow, if I tweak these few things, I'm going to feel so much better. And which means you're going to have more access to power, which means you're going to sleep better, have better energy, have better periods, be less influenced by your hormones. It's a win. So what we're looking for is first energy on a 1 to 10, no caffeine or exercise for 2 full days. On the 3rd day, what's your energy like? I like to see 8 out of 10. 2, and again, you can't exercise for 2 days, because if you're exercising, you're tired, you're not going to be tired until you stop exercising, then you'll really feel it. 28 to 32 day cycle that makes you ovulate between cycle day 14 and 16. You have no PMS, so no new symptoms between ovulation and your period, no migraines, breast tenderness, moodiness, PMDD, none of that. Period comes, 4 days of bleeding, soak a tampon or a pad about every 4 hours, not more, not less. Fresh red blood, no cramping, clotting, spotting. Temperatures before ovulation around 97.2, temperatures after ovulation 98 or above. And that's the conceivable cycle. And so if somebody came into the app and they're like, I want to work on my period, I would be like, you don't really have anything to work on. But if they're just like, I just want to maintain, what they would do is they would, in their menu section, they'll see all the person after the data that it's collected. It's going to look at your height, your weight, what you want to do. What are you working on? It'll do custom menu plans and shopping lists for you, so you don't have to think about what to eat. And it's kind of all batched to make it easier. You would spend 5 or 10 minutes talking with Saren, the therapist, to keep down regulate. We want you to get in there every time you kind of get upset or stressed, spend 5 minutes talking to her, because what happens is every time you down regulate yourself in just 5 minutes, you're like, oh, I feel better. Because a lot of times people have stuff on their hearts that they don't even want to tell their best friends, or they don't want to tell their best friends over and over and over and over. It's like, oh my God, my husband's such a dick. Oh my God, my husband's such a dick. So, but we want to give people tools to down-regulate their nervous system and continually find more compassion for themselves. And then anything she's curious about, like if she's more into biohacking, right? She can see like, oh, okay, well, I did yoga yesterday and now I can look at my heart rate variability. And if I don't understand, say, Kai, I did yoga at 2:00 yesterday and now my heart rate variability, what does that mean? And then she can just do the analysis for you. You don't have to do all the guessing.
That is so interesting. I kind of want to use it like right now. I'm going to download it now on my phone.
That's good. That's good. I mean, that makes me happy that you want it. It's like, it's been a really long journey, and it's been really hard to build. It's been really hard. We're raising money right now. And even just explaining what this is has been very hard, because people are like, oh, it's just a tracker. I don't want to invest in a tracker. I'm like, no. This is nothing like a tracker. Like, oh, it's an operating system. What do you mean it's an operating system? Like Apple? Like, you can't build Apple. It's like, well, we're going to try and build it for women.
Of course, the work that you're doing is trying to democratize access to this kind of information I would assume, as much as possible. Before doing all of that, I think I would like to talk a little bit more about the period empowerment for people that don't have Conceivable right now. So for regular people that don't know about YAP, I have a feeling that being period empowered is a middle class luxury in a sense. To add a layer of explanation to this question, I was when I wrote this question, I was thinking about menstrual leave, for instance, right, which is a benefit that a company can implement. To my experience, only if it's a larger corporation or if it's state funded. So most small to medium enterprises cannot have this benefit for their employees, because it would literally be a bloodbath. The pun is also intended. But yeah, in a sense, how would you say that the situation for period empowerment and awareness, like, do you match my feeling? Am I overthinking it?
Well, I think that I do see your point, where like sort of a like middle and upper class kind of issue. I have 2 TikToks, and one is for little girls. It's mostly girls who have not had their first period. And what I can tell you is that almost none of them know anything, regardless of their social status. But the poor ones, the ones with lower socioeconomic status, are really in trouble. Like, they would tell me things like, my mom and dad are really poor. We can't afford menstrual supplies. What should I do? And one girl said, oh, what I do is I go into the bathrooms and I try to find the menstrual pads that are not very used, and I just recycle somebody else's used menstrual pad. Yeah. I cried because of that. My other company, I started offering, we're going to have it at Conceivable too, just not yet. Something called the $5 cup, because I think that like period poverty is not solved with pads. It's solved with cups. we can source a cup for $1. So we basically had this $5 cup because I was like, $40. Why does a cup need to cost $40? They cost 40 cents on Alibaba. Like by the time I ship it, it's going to cost me $1. So the $5 cup was like, if you buy 1 cup from us, we give 4 cups to people in need. And so even though it's weird to use a cup, it is a way to put a menstrual supply, because even with reusable pads, like if you live somewhere where water is scanty or there's not a lot of water, or like in the Middle East now because of all the war, you might have to either there's not much water to wash your reusable pad, or worse, might have to go down to a river where everybody's washing their laundry and get out your menstrual pads. And I was like, hey, I'm washing my clothes. I don't want your, menstrual pads. A menstrual cup can be wiped out with a leaf and a quick rinse of water. And so we have to get over sort of the stigma around menstrual cups. But if we could get menstrual cups to every single person on the planet, we could do it for a very small amount of money. And then everybody could at least have some dignity during their period. And so to your question about the class issue, I think that just the shame around menstruation is still way too great. Even every time I'm on a podcast, the host always asks me, is there anything you don't feel comfortable talking about? And I think that's one of the worst questions to ask a podcast host. I was like, that question is exactly why we're in such trouble for women's health right now, because we don't want to talk about things that make people uncomfortable. And women passing out from their periods, we should be talking about that. Women wearing diapers to work because they're hemorrhaging and and nobody cares enough to deal with it. We need to be talking about those things, even though they make us feel uncomfortable.
100%. You made me think that talking about privileges, right? It's at the ripe age of 25-year-old, it's when I connected the dots on why period stigma exists in the first place. Because I just assumed that, I don't know, people were horrible or something. But it's actually coming from the lack of access of menstrual products. And it just never clicked into my head. I felt so dumb the moment I realized it. And I was watching a webinar about period stigma, and they explained, for instance, the speaker. She was from, if I remember correctly, from Himalaya or Mongolia. I don't remember exactly. She was saying that they were going to separate huts when they had their period as women collectively, because they didn't have period products and they couldn't cook and everything, because everything would just get covered in blood, and you just don't really want to do that. And yeah, I think that was also a sort of privilege from my end, that I never really had to experience any of that, right?
Well, I think that the other thing is that I was very curious too. Like I was a linguist in my first career, so when I saw that stat about how many percentage of women had life-interrupting pain and PMS, I was like, everybody who came to my clinic had really bad PMS and cramping. So I didn't ever think that that was systemically true, that all women were having such bad periods. I just was like, these are the women who come to my clinic. They all have it, but they're all struggling to get pregnant. And so I got really curious. Also, I was a cultural linguist. So I was like, from a culture standpoint, how did we get here? From a language standpoint. And so I'm not an anthropologist. So if there's data that I haven't seen, I'm not promoting this is like the definitive first thing, but through my research, the first thing that I found in written language about menstruation, apart from classical Chinese medicine texts, which would have been only for scholars, was in the book of Leviticus. It said, that thing is so vile, it's as vile as a menstruating woman or the devil. That's the first thing. That's where the shame began, right? Because even in religion, we're already, filthy because we menstruate. And then very shortly after that, Aristotle said, women are the inferior species because they menstruate. They only can produce the soil in which the seed can grow. The seed is the source of the spirit and the intellect. And that was the prevailing theory on women's health for 17 centuries. And when I read that, I just had such an aha moment. I was like, that's why we hate ourselves. That's why we hide in shame and we're embarrassed and we think that we're dirty and whatever, every other thing that we possibly think, instead of thinking, holy crap, I'm the future of this species. I should be the highest ranking person on the planet, right? Like I hold the biggest privilege, whether you choose to use that privilege or not, you do have the privilege of at least trying to make another human. And and that is nothing to be ashamed of. And that's what I really want to teach the little girls. It's like what you going through puberty is your transformation to superhumanness, right? From just going like you'll be just like the boys until you go through puberty, and then you're like bada bada boom, here I am.
100%. Yeah, this was really powerful, and it made me think also. I'll try to say this really quickly because it's a very niche topic that I'm interested into, but it links so well because I've been studying quite a bit the human development, like the world development and biology, and how periods are basically our evolutionary advantage into making sure that we can have babies and our babies will survive past 3 years old, because we not anatomically but like socially need a partner to be with us for at least 3 years after delivery so that our baby can survive with us. And so the way that we evolved is to have not a yearly cycle like most mammals do, but a monthly one, so that we were forced to have intercourse more often so that our partner would fall in love with us.
More
And
intimacy.
so, exactly. And so it's really, really horrible that we are brought now to think that we are dirty. Yeah, I wanted to bring this forward just because it's, again, one of those things that blew my mind a little bit. And so maybe somebody else will be blown by it as well. I don't know.
Well,
Yeah.
it's a good, it's a good argument. Like, of course, if you're trying to prevent unwanted pregnancy, oral contraceptives, they really work, and and for some people, that's going to be the appropriate intervention. But I hate to do it as much as we can because all of those signals are like there are resonance, right? Those hormone cycling, they're communicating not only with like our partners, but our friends, our fellow females. All of that is a resonance that we're spreading out that gets basically just shut down. And I hate for women to sort of lose contact. Even after, like, I'm postmenopausal, I even sort of, even though it's so nice not to have a period anymore, I really miss the rhythm of a period. It's like you kind of you're like, oh, how many periods ago was that? And once you lose it, you're sort of like unmoored after that. And it's a very interesting experience. But to your point, I think that, there's an interesting study. This is back to sort of the signals that we give, where they took women and they had the same woman, but they told men this was going to be 21 different women or something. And they had the same woman and they gave her a brand new like white t-shirt, like a man's t-shirt to sleep in for 21 nights. And then they took the shirts and they put them in these like plastic tube things, and then the men came in and they're like, there's 21 things here. Just stick your face in there and see which one is the sexiest. Just from your just pheromone experience. Oh my God, like 88% of them could pick the ovulating woman. Like it was really, really interesting. They thought it was different. They did the same thing where they had a woman say hello. Same woman, dumb man. Same woman like 21 times. She's like, hello, hello, hello. And even around ovulation, the tension on the estrogen affects the tension in the vocal cords, and the voice gets even higher around ovulation, and the men could hear it. I hate to shut all that down, right? I think it is an important, like, we're getting so, especially with technology, we're getting so, like, our world is becoming smaller and smaller, but I feel like we need to increase our broadcast frequency larger and larger. And that does not have to be a woo-woo kind of a thing, right? We know if I'm in a horrible mood and I come over to your house, my horrible mood can either get on you or your good mood is going to get on me. Or one of us is going to leave mad.
Yeah, 100%. But this is a little bit off topic about what we were saying, because I could go about like giving examples for like a million hours because this is so passionate. But I also have other topics that I really want to bring forward before we finish this interview. And to connect the following topic, I was wondering, yourself as such engaged CEO, how do you work around periods in your company? Do you have anything that addresses the menstrual leave or something?
So we're only a 5-person team and we're trying to get an enormous product off the ground. In my company, I hire extremely smart people who I trust. Everyone believes that the work that we're doing, that there isn't a more important thing that we could be working on. So if somebody's not working, either they're doing something more important with their family or they don't feel well. And I mean, we're a small organization. So if we had 1,000 employees, I don't know if I could still be doing that. But I think that because we're so mission driven that we are desperate to get every single woman feeling power around her period, around her life, around her femininity. Just, I mean, even the men on our team are just like, this is the most important thing I've done in my whole life. The guy who's our COO, he's funny because he worked for the Department of Defense. And then he worked for Hershey's, and he's like, first I killed people with bombs. Then when I was at Hershey, I killed people with sugar. It's like, finally, I'm doing something I can feel proud of. Hershey and ChargePoint, he was just joking. He's just playful. Don't get upset if you hear that. So yeah, I think that it really depends on the size of the organization, but I've already raised my children. I don't want to babysit anybody. I know how much work can get done in a certain period of time, and most of the time my team is exceeding that. And if they can exceed that and only work 25 hours a week, I don't care. Like, do a reasonable amount of work and do the best work. Like, what we really try to help our employees do is to be smart and efficient, use AI as much as humanly possible. Like, I don't care about doing anything manually. Like, you're better off to know how to use more AI to be smarter, cleaner. Like, I wrote 31 patents last month. That could never have happened without AI, you know?
Yeah, 100%. Talking about your company and also widening the lens a little bit. If I understood correctly, you kind of are in the FemTech industry. You've been in the FemTech industry for about 8 years, I would say, more or less. Is that accurate?
Yep.
At an industry level, when we talk about technology and health, is there really a shift happening right now, or are you the outlier?
Yes and no. There is a shift happening. There are still so many stupid companies, in my opinion, that are getting funded that won't do anything to change the lives of women. These are just infuriating for me. Apple is celebrating now they can predict when a person's period's going to onset. I was like, you don't need AI to do that. That's the easiest thing. Like, they're practically giving themselves the Nobel Prize for that. Exactly. So I was like, this is innovation. This is shit. But there are, with AI, like a friend of mine has an AI company where they're doing AI to read mammograms. They have FDA approval already, so they have clear efficacy. They're able to capture breast cancer tumors 5 years earlier. That's like more smaller than in situ, right? They're so small. That's going to change the landscape of women's health, right? So many more women are going to have very early detection and get treatment very early and not have any consequence at all. So I think they're doing some interesting work trying to figure out how to use menstrual blood to diagnose endometriosis. I think that's super cool. But at the same time, you see other, like, these AI companies that are just like schedulers. They're like the first AI for fertility, and all it is like you call in and they find you a doctor and schedule. I'm like, you don't need this. You can use Claude for that. Like, you don't need a subscription for one of these things. So I think that what I hope that Conceivable is able to do is change the landscape in a way that we stop celebrating features and we demand that what we build produces measurable outcomes. Measurable outcomes. Without measurable outcomes, it's just a gimmick. The Oura ring is a gimmick to me, because knowing how many steps you take has never been shown to get you to take more steps.
Yeah. And given the reaction that you had to my question, I want to read you the second part of the question that I wrote, because I think it would make you giggle. So the full question that I wanted to ask you was, at an industry level, is it meaningful change happening in health tech, or are we waiting for someone else to save women's health? And I think this brings me to the next question. Do you think governments should have an impact in this? Like, if we're waiting for a magic something falling on our head, who should be the magic thing?
Well, I hope I'm the magic thing. I think that what I've built is the thing, but I don't know. I mean, I just think I certainly don't want any government involved at this point. Like, they move too slow, right? If it was a government agency, it would go, they're too small, they're too afraid of liability. I think a startup is a better, even because like even people like Clue and Flow can't compete with Conceivable right now because I can move lightning fast because I don't have 200 developers. I don't have this, I don't have a 300 person board. I don't have $1 billion valuation. I can do anything I want right now, which means I can move so fast. And because AI is moving so fast, we're in a unique position to really lay that foundation of building all those AI infrastructures.
Yeah.
I mean, I would be really afraid in today's government to let them have any, if that would be to me a direct like movement towards the Handmaid's Tale.
Yeah. Well, I think the perspectives here are also different because you are used to have private healthcare in a sense, right? Whereas I lived in Switzerland, so healthcare is also private, but it's basically like a private version of a public healthcare. So I think that would also affect a lot the way I would feel about the government getting into my business, right? Because if I knew that somebody was benevolent towards me, it would probably, having lived in Europe, 100% move extremely slowly, but hopefully it would have a little bit, I would be benevolent in myself, I guess. Anyway.
But what I hope is that, like we had such ridiculous outcomes from the pilot. And what I hope is that once we get to 10,000 users, some insurance companies in the US said, like, look, we'll mandate that everybody who wants to get fertility treatments do Conceivable first and we'll pay for it. And so, as we get more and more data and we get the app actually gets smarter and smarter, the outcomes are going to be more and more impressive. And so I think that governments will probably want to either license or collaborate with us, but we'll still want to control the access to all the data. Like even if the EU said, okay, well, we'll pay for we'll subsidize it, but we need to see the data. I was like, hell no, nobody's seeing this data. It's just too risky.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, definitely. Before we finish our conversation, I feel like we speciated among a lot of topics, and maybe there are still people that were wondering about more period-related questions, like health-related questions. So I thought of writing a few rapid-fire questions that you can answer just yes or no. So question number 1. I think we already answered this one, but is period pain still too normalized?
Yes. Period pain is never normal. It doesn't mean you have a disease. It's never normal. And 95% of you can have 95% no pain in about 90 days.
Are women underrepresented in clinical trials?
100%. In fact, what researchers say is they don't want to use women because their cycles make it too complicated. But it's exactly because we have menstrual cycles that they need to study us.
Is hormonal birth control prescribed too casually?
I don't have the data to know if it's prescribed too casually. When it's prescribed to regulate periods, I think that's unethical, not casual, because that's a lie. Like birth control doesn't have the ability to jumpstart your period. So I think that's giving misinformation. I think for a certain cohort of people, it's probably going to be the safest way to protect unwanted pregnancy, even though it's not ideal. Non-hormonal IUD is probably my favorite. But then again, both of those don't protect against STDs.
Is perimenopause dangerously under-discussed?
No, but it does need to be discussed. What women need to understand, people ask me like, I'm not getting pregnant. Is it perimenopause? I'm like, I don't know, how old are you? And they're like 39. I'm like, it's definitely perimenopause, but that may not be why you're not getting pregnant. Everybody starts going through perimenopause around 35. Just a few, think of perimenopause as just reverse puberty. Puberty, the hormones are ramping up. Perimenopause, they're starting to ramp down, and just things get a little bit wonky. But I mean, ultimately, the care team, the conceivable care team, would be with her. So as she started having, oh, I skipped a period, then Kai or her analyst Atlas would be like, it's okay. You're 39 years old. This is going to start happening. Nothing pathological is going on here. So that's how we kind of plan to address that.
Should boys be taught menstrual literacy in school?
100,000 bazillion percent. And I think that dads would do so well if they started talking with moms in front of children about periods. So if mom has her period and dad says, what's going on? You don't seem like yourself today, in a nice way, not in a, are you on the rag kind of tone. And mom says, oh, I just have some cramping. My period's usually fine, but today, mom is just making this up, right? Today I just have some cramps. I don't feel good. And dad says, oh gosh, you sacrifice every single month to have your period for us to have a family. I really appreciate that so much. Can I make you like some tea or some cocoa, or you want the hot water bottle or just a little bit of nurturing, and just honor, and said, do you need any supplies? I'm going to go to HEB or whatever your grocery store is. This is in front of the kids. And then, he's going to the store and he's like, come on, son, come with me. And they go to the store, and then dad and son walk down the tampon aisle. And then he's like, okay, your mom likes Tampax. She likes Slim or whatever she likes. If we just start normalizing these conversations and just showing women who are menstruating dignity and respect in front of our younger generations, it will have a generational impact that will help all of us. We need our village to be also modeling period normalcy, respect for menstruators, respect for just, that sometimes women suffer to menstruate also. They don't have to, but, sometimes they still do.
Is hormone imbalance overused as a buzzword?
Well, I just think it's useless in that we have hundreds of hormones. So when somebody says, how do I fix my hormone imbalance? I'm like, which ones? Because if it's thyroid, take thyroid medication. If it's adrenals, fix your adrenals. If it's cortisol, if it's blood sugar, stop eating so much sugar. And so we don't necessarily need a hormone detox or any of that stuff. We just need to figure out what's the real problem. That's why I keep coming back to personalization, 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 because otherwise you have to do a lot of things and you're guessing. If we can just keep reverse engineering till we know what the real problem is, you just change that one thing and then huzzah, 1 month later, it's a lot better.
Is burnout connected to ignoring biological rhythms?
Yes. I think burnout, I think every single woman that I ever talk to is so burned out, whether she acknowledges it or not. Mostly because all of them tell me that even when they're really tired, they'll be like, I'm like a 6. 6 is really a 2. If they say a 2, they're about to die. That means they're way lower than 2. But again, like I said, we interviewed 16,000 women last year. 60% said their energy was 6 out of 10. 40% said 4 out of 10. They're all burned out. They're burned out, they're blown out, but they've been conditioned to eat a whole bunch of protein bars and go do CrossFit every single day. That will solve the problems, when that just makes it worse, especially if you have PCOS or a metabolic condition.
Do you think that relationships would improve with hormonal literacy?
I think the most important thing for improving relationships is better communication. So part of that would be hormonal literacy, but in coaching so many couples, really there's a real lack of communication, especially when we have to talk about something that makes us feel vulnerable or scared. And then in the absence of that communication, nothing's happening. And then you layer hormonal stuff on top of that. It becomes even more mired in complex problems. But the hormonal issues shouldn't be the problems that impact the relationship. We should fix those hormonal issues instead of just trying to say, I can't deal with this right now because I have really bad PMS. Let's go ahead and help her to just not have the PMS.
And last question is a little bit naughty in a sense. So, is the future of healthcare personalized and cyclical?
I like that. That might be my new tagline: conceivable, personalized, and cyclical. The future of health is a healthcare system in which, whether it's a human or AI doctor, that they never stop with the first symptom. That they're never satisfied. Oh, I have migraines. Okay, here, take this migraine medication, right? Oh, I have vitamin D deficiency. Here, take this vitamin D. Instead of, why don't you have vitamin D? Why is you never go outside? That's the treatment. Oh, you have whatever. So that we stop treating the symptoms and we really start treating it seems like a cliche to say the person, but it really is not only the person, but her environment, her thoughts, what she puts on herself. Every single piece is part of the ecosystem that is either presenting as an optimally healthy or fertile woman, medium or low, or not. And she has a tremendous amount of control over that, which is the best thing.
Thank you. This was all of my rapid fire questions. I hope you enjoyed.
I did.
It's the first time I do it, so I didn't know. I wasn't very sure. But yeah, so just to sum up everything that we discussed today, it was a lot of topics, but I feel like what I can kind of try to bring home, if I were to summarize it in a couple questions, is that my menstrual cycle isn't just a metric to tell me if I am possibly going to have a baby in the next 9 months, if I am having unprotected sex, but it's a tool for its power right now, its policies, its data, its money, and after all, it's also a future, which all of this goes way beyond a one person's uterine lining. So my closing question that I always like to ask my guests is, if they had a magic wand and you could redesign something within the work structure or the health system or the social norms or even female biological rhythms, what would be the first thing that you would change?
I don't know if this is the right answer to your question. The thing that if I could just wave a magic wand, because if I could change the way that women related with their bodies, their self-love or self-loathing, and their period and their fertility potential as something amazing and sacred and beautiful, that would make my work a lot easier, right? Because I don't think that I'm part of this. I don't want to seem like I've sorted this out and none of you guys have, so just want to be really transparent about that. I don't think that we as women have still completely remembered how worthy we are. That we are worthy of beautiful lives and being treated as the beautiful beings that we are, and great health, and that we shouldn't have to mortgage our health for it. But we just have gotten so many messages for so many centuries that it's to untangle that is just going to take time. I don't like to have the limiting belief system that it's going to take a long time or generations. Energy can change very quickly with the right impetus. And so we have to sort of work at that level, because none of us are free when we're imprisoned by our own self-hate and self-loathing or lack of self-acceptance, depending where on the spectrum you are,
100%. Last question, is there any topics that you think that we should have covered that we didn't?
I think we covered a lot. I can't think of any other just yet off the top of my head.
We did
maybe just how much I hate period trackers and monitors, but we'll save that for another conversation.
All right, then if somebody wants to know more about you, Kirsten, or about Conceivable, where can they find you?
The easiest place is either on TikTok, Your Fertility Expert, and there's a bunch of fake ones. So if it's not like a couple 100,000 followers, that's not actually me. And on our website, conceivable.com, you can order your supplement pack, even if you're not trying to get pregnant. Just super high quality personalized supplements for $100, not even $180 a month. And you can order a halo ring, and the app will be out in about 5 weeks, but probably by the time this airs, it'll be out.
Wonderful. Well, I wanted to thank you so much for this conversation. I think I had quite a bit of information as well, but I learned so much. So thank you
for joining us to this conversation.
It was wonderful.
And,
I really enjoyed
yeah.
it.